Well, thank you for joining me today on the Deschutes Current podcast. We're here at OSU Cascades, and I'm here with Kavi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I know that you've been with the Environmental Center for a few years as the Rethink Waste Manager.
Yep.
But your title has changed.
Yes, I'm still one of the Rethink Waste, I guess, co-program managers, but I am definitely much more focused now on Reuse the Shoots, which is a new initiative that we're launching, which I'm really excited about.
Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I think the simple way I try to put it is that Reuse the Shoots goal is to help shift Central Oregon's food service sector from single-use serviceware to reusable serviceware.
Yeah.
And so what that means is when we think about going out to, let's say, a food cart lot, for example, and having a meal, I think many of us are used to having everything served in single use, be it plastic or paper ware. If it's a takeout container, or if it's plates, bowls, utensils, everything is single use. And then when we're done the meal, whether it's at the lot or it's at home, we're often throwing all of that away. Because none of that is recyclable. None of that is compostable.
Even if it says it's compostable.
Correct. Right. So that's a good point that you're raising, and something that I would love to kind of clarify at the start, because there's still a lot of confusion about that. I think there's a lot of contamination, as we call it, when people try to recycle or compost something that is actually not recyclable or compostable. And I think the first thing I would want to say is everything that's recyclable or compostable is region by region dependent. And in Deschutes County, and actually in the state of Oregon, there is no such thing as compostable serviceware.
Okay. I didn't know it was all of Oregon.
All of Oregon.
The closest one, do you know where that would be?
So it wouldn't make sense. I guess I don't know where it would be, but I can explain the reasoning why it's not compostable in the state of Oregon, and why composting facilities specifically have written a letter saying they don't want any compostable serviceware in the state of Oregon. So all these composting facilities across the state of Oregon came together and wrote a letter giving 10 reasons why compostables should not go and compost, even if they're marketed, even if they have that little symbol that says compostable.
The numbers and things.
Correct. And so I think some of the main reasons, there's 10 reasons. If you Google it, you can find it, but I'll cover some of the top reasons. The first one is all compostable serviceware is different, so not all of it degrades in the same time period. Here in Deschutes County, we have our commercial composting facility has a high heat like windrow, and it's 6-week process. So in that 6 weeks, all organic material, so that's either yard waste, that's like brown matter, or all like kitchen waste, like that's green matter, all organic produce or meats, vegetables, things like that. All of that breaks down in those 6 weeks. But the compostable serviceware they've found over and over again doesn't break down. And so there'll still be bits and pieces of forks or plates or cups that's found there, and it increases the work that they have to do to get all that separated out from
they'd have to sort it.
Exactly. So they have to use processes that are both manual or time consuming to get all of that out, because it's contamination from the product that they're trying to create and sell to farmers or people that want some compost in their yards.
Right.
So that's one of the first reasons, is that they don't want it because it's just contamination. It's not all standardized. It doesn't break down in the same time period as actual organic material. And so that's one of the things that they have mentioned in that letter. And then the other thing is actually more if you're thinking about what's the point of doing composting, it's to create nutrient-rich soil that can help the soil. And the compostable serviceware doesn't add a lot of value to it. So even if it were to break down, it doesn't really make the compost better in any way. And then the last one, I think also, if we're thinking about it from a sustainability standpoint, is people want to do the right thing. So a lot of businesses are like, oh, I'll choose a compostable version. It's going to be more sustainable. It's not using oil.
Right.
But actually, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality has done some studies on this. They're called life cycle analysis. And what they've found is that in some cases, or in many cases, compostable serviceware has a higher carbon footprint than if it's made from paper or plastic. So I think that those are some of the main reasons right now where we're really trying to get the message out to everyone that, especially businesses that are using compostable serviceware, that as of now, and this might change in the future, but as of now at least, there's no point to using compostable serviceware, at least, and if you do use it, to make sure it's still going in the landfill, which kind of defeats the purpose because it's also usually more expensive.
Gotcha.
So that's where we're really trying to put the focus on switching to reusables. And they've done a lot of studies for reusables that, regardless of what metric you look at, if you look at carbon emissions, if you look at water usage, if you look at any of those factors, reusables always beats out single-use serviceware of any kind. So that's what this project is focused on, and that's something that's happening, I would say, across the state of Oregon and across the nation. There is more and more of a momentum towards switching from single-use serviceware to reusables.
Yeah. How has life after COVID kind of changed this arena? How are you navigating through it? Because there's still a lot of worries and things about germs, and that's why there was so much single-use transition. I mean, we still have always had it, but I just feel like it really blew up after COVID. Everything was in its individual piece. And so how are you going to kind of tackle all that?
That's a good question. I would say there was definitely a couple year time period where I think a lot of people were very anxious about that. I do think, at least at the state of Oregon level, there have been bills and laws passed in the last few years that have clarified that food service businesses are able to accept reusables. So if you bring your own coffee cup to a cafe, they are allowed to do that as long as they meet certain criteria where it's not getting cross-contamination of any kind or there's no risk of that. But businesses do have the power to accept reusables as long as they follow that. And even our local Deschutes County Environmental Health Department of Environmental Health is also very much in support of making sure that's clear for businesses that they are able to use reusables.
Yeah.
I guess the way I would look at it is I think we're pretty used to using reusables when we think about on-site dining. So if you go to a nice restaurant, you're going to get a ceramic plate, you're going to get stainless steel utensils, and all of that is reusable and it goes in a commercial dishwashing process. So all of that still remains true. Everything that is reusable would still go through the same process. So I hope that alleviates any concerns that people might have. The food safety part of it is still the same. Right. Especially if it's any kind of reuse system where the customer is not bringing their own, which is probably the majority of the time, then it still goes through the same, sanitizing process to make sure that everything is clean and food safe.
Okay. So you're working with one food cart lot, or how many in town are you trying to reach out? What's your reach for the program?
You're asking some good questions, yes. So I think the way I would put it is that we're kind of in a couple different phases of this project. The first phase, and to give a little bit more context maybe, is that a lot of this work that we're doing is made possible through a grant that we received from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay.
So they have this grant program called the Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine Materials Management Grant Program. That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful.
But it basically was created to support and hopefully make possible projects like this that kind of reimagine how to bring reuse in different communities across Oregon. Okay. And so we applied for the grant, and we were very grateful to receive the grant as well, which has made a lot of this work over the last year and over the next year possible. And so that grant specifically was focused, I'll try and not get too in the weeds here, so let me know if I am. But that grant was specifically on two components of that. One was doing a reusable takeout container program.
Okay.
So that program is modeled of some other cities in Oregon. So there's Rogue to Go in Ashland, and there's Benton to Go in Corvallis.
Okay.
And they both have similar programs where basically it's a voluntary program, so any food service business can participate in it. And then it's voluntary also for customers. So people who care about switching from single-use to reusables can participate in the program. But the way it works is customers buy a container. There's a one-time fee for it, but then you own it for life.
Okay.
And then you can use that at any of the network of participating businesses. Okay. So it works by creating a network where maybe 20 or 30 businesses or more participate. They all use a standardized container, so it makes it really easy.
So is it like a deposit for this container and you're switching it out, but it's the same shape and size?
Yes.
It's exactly. Not just one single container you're taking home?
Correct. You have access to that container at any time. So if you have it and you own it and you take it home and it's just sitting there, that's fine. But if you ever want another container, you can either return that container and get a new container, or you can get a token, which you can use for future use.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a buy it once, and then you're in the network, and then
Gotcha.
you can use it anywhere and have access to it anywhere, and any of the businesses that participate in that.
Okay.
And as an example, Rogue to Go has already seen, I think, 27,000 uses of their containers. So it's saved 27,000 pieces of single-use
How long
containers.
have they been doing it? Do you know?
They've had it for, I would say, actually, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's around 3 to 4 years, maybe
Okay.
more. But it's been a very volunteer-driven program, and we're hoping, and they're much smaller than us. So I think there's potential for us to launch it with a lot more businesses, especially by doing a lot more outreach that we're really focused on.
Yeah.
And then once we launch it, hopefully also have it be something that we really, I think, my understanding, or at least my sense of it, is that our community is really cares about sustainability in Central Oregon, and so I expect a lot of folks to be interested in participating. And that's kind of what we've seen through some of the survey that we've done as well, some market research that we've done.
Yeah. And you've already done a lot of this outreach with your Rethink Waste program, right? Was it with the food card lots, or was that more community based? Because I know I've seen the newsletters and things, and
Yeah.
I get that, but
I would say we've done some amount of it already. I think we're looking forward to doing a lot more of it in the coming months, especially. And so that's one of the reasons that, as you mentioned, my kind of job title change, or my focus change, is to create more capacity to do more of this outreach and kind of really work with food service businesses going forward as well. But we've already done a good amount in terms of talk to some food cart lot owners, some food cart owners, and other food service businesses, restaurants as well. So we've done some amount of it, and I guess and the question I was answering had two components,
Right.
and then the second part of that, the second component of that grant that we received is to do a pilot at one food cart lot specifically.
Okay.
And so that's what we applied for. That's what we got funding for, is to do a pilot at one food cart lot. What I'll add to that is, when we talk to food cart lots, one of the chief constraints for a food cart lot to participate in a reusable program is that they don't have dishwashing capabilities like a restaurant would have usually.
Right.
They don't usually have a commercial dishwasher on site. They don't usually have 3 sink, they don't have the whole setup to do that at that scale. And when I've talked to some of the food cart lot owners, the other constraint is space. They don't have space, even if they had funding to get a commercial dishwasher, which we have in the grant to help them. They don't have a space or location to put it anywhere, most of them. And so that's another constraint. And so what we found actually, and one of our learnings from talking to food cart lots and kind of also doing research of what's worked well in other places, it's a lot harder to do something that's localized to one food cart lot. But if we can get something called a dishwashing hub, which is a centralized place where everything can get washed for all the businesses that don't have the capacity on their own to do it, then it really allows that to scale. So instead of just having dishwashing at one food cart lot, you can now do it at 7 or 10 or all of them.
Yeah. Do you guys have a space in mind for a hub, or is that something still kind of in the works?
These are really good questions. We are, I think we are, so this is only something that, especially since November, we went to something called the Portland Reuse Summit, which is really great because it had a lot of folks from the Portland metro area, but also some national organizations there, talking and sharing success stories of what's worked in terms of reuse across the country. And so since we learned that in November, we've actually been trying to figure out what's the best way forward to do a centralized dishwashing hub. And we've looked at, and we've done some research on like what would it be for us to do it ourselves. But we, as an environmental nonprofit at the Environmental Center, are not experts of dishwashing, and we don't want to take that on the business of dishwashing. So we've also looked at other businesses that offer that as a service. And one of them that's somewhat local is Bold Reuse. They're based out of Portland, but they've actually done this exact thing in terms of washing all kinds of serviceware at scale for venues as large as the Moda Center in Portland, and also the Planet Pledge Arena in Seattle. So we've been working with them on what it would take to bring a dishwashing hub to Central Oregon. And the idea we're looking at right now is kind of like combining it. It needs to be a certain volume for it to make business sense for them. So we're looking at combining food cart lots, which we have tons of here,
Right.
And then also events, which we have some really big events.
Mm-hmm.
Events from the Hayden Homes Amphitheater,
Yeah.
which we would love to have as a partner, and they're interested in this as well, seeing if this can be something that can work.
I did talk with Justin just a few
Oh,
weeks ago,
cool.
so we touched on the subject. So I was
Okay.
really curious to hear more. But yeah, events that large, and then events as small as like lunch and music. Are you looking at that too,
Yes.
or whatever,
So
Summer Fest, Winter Fest, all of
you
them?
yeah, you have a good handle on all the events that we have here. That's actually great. Yeah. So we actually are working with a lot of the event organizers or venues,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all interested in this. And so I think a lot of it is like figuring out the logistics of how much it would cost,
Right.
how it would work. And we are applying for some other grants to potentially help ease that transition to get like all the serviceware, so the businesses individually don't have to purchase it all.
Right. That'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they have a lot on their plates already.
They do, and I think at least what's encouraging from my standpoint as someone, excuse me, who manages one of the programs for the Environmental Center for an environmental nonprofit, is I don't know if this is true for other regions, but at least here I feel like there's so much interest and support. So I feel like I've shared this with a lot of the event organizers, like Justin, as well. Is just that I feel like in other areas, I almost feel like the environmental nonprofit has to like push people to be like, oh, to care about this. But I feel like the care is already there, and now it's just like, can we get it to a point where it's feasible? You know, we also have to think about the financial side as well. Is it comparable to single-use costs, or can it get close enough to it where it makes sense?
Right.
So I can understand having to make the business case for it, but at least the interest and kind of like there is that intrinsic motivation to be more sustainable, which I'm really glad to see.
No, that's a really exciting change. I worked in the food business during COVID, and I remember the businesses getting money from higher up just for like the throwaway boxes and to go stuff. And so if they could put that money into something reusable, I mean, that can stay with them and not have to go to the waste.
You're raising a really good point, and I do want to kind of take the opportunity to mention this as well. Is I think there's this there's often what I would call like the hidden costs of single-use serviceware.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when businesses are buying single-use serviceware for, let's say for a restaurant, for let's say plastic cups at a coffee shop, right, or paper cups at a coffee shop, they're seeing the cost of that might be, let's say, 5 or 10 cents. But I think what often gets missed is then also there is, and this is something I've heard from food cart lots, is the actual trash collection cost of just all of that adds up to quite a bit. And I've heard some food cart lots say they're spending $1,800 a month, so almost $2,000 a month on just the collection, and that the majority of it is single-use serviceware.
Right.
So that's something that they can save from. And then I think, and that's something they're still facing and they're still paying for.
Definitely.
But I think there are also other costs that I think all of us are paying for indirectly. Is that if you're thinking of paper cups at coffee shops, usually people get a coffee and then they're throwing it in maybe downtown. If they're walking around, they might throw it in one of the public trash cans.
Yeah.
And so I think as a whole, we're all still kind of indirectly paying for these costs that we're not directly seeing as well.
Right.
And so one of the things I've heard from other folks, especially, you know, experts in this field or people who are really on the pioneering edge of this, is how to get some of those costs and kind of have them be more, I forget the term for it, but extrinsic, if they're I'll stop trying, extrinsic costs, and how to like actually embed them. Thank you. That's the word I'm going for. And how to kind of embed them into and show the actual cost of it. And that's still not looking at the environmental impact. It's not looking at all the not landfill is almost full, and the costs we're paying for that as well. So I think there's a lot of those things that are not currently being factored that we as a society have gotten used to convenience of single-use serviceware, but we're not always thinking of, oh, there's all these other impacts that are happening. And by reducing that, we're not just reducing waste, but we're reducing all those impacts as well.
Yeah.
Get some water.
Yeah, of course. No. You mentioned the life cycle of the product. So with these reusable items, what does their life cycle look like? Are they also going to be plastic? Are you thinking like stainless steel?
Yeah.
How is that going to be reflected in this program?
That's a really good question as well, and that's something that we really, I think that's one of the reasons we've gotten this grant spring, summer of last year, and I think since then we're really trying to do our research to make sure we're choosing the right, um, making the right decisions for this program for its long-term sustainability,
Hmm.
um, and that's a big one is the container material, the container type, the size, like all of those things, especially for the reusable container program,
Yeah.
is something that's really important. And so, what we've tried to do is we've tried to go to other places that have done this. So, Rogue to Go, for example,
Yeah.
and they've been very kind, especially at Rogue to Go. The folks there, and the chief spot leader of this program there, her name is Risa, and she's been very helpful from the start, in like terms of meeting and like sharing their knowledge and what they learned from this. But what she shared is that when she first started this, it was just the idea that she had, and she really cared about it. And she really did not want to use plastic of any kind. She
Yeah.
wanted to use stainless steel or glass or something that made
Hmm.
sense. And what she tried to really convey is that when she started meeting with business owners, she learned that their needs were very specific. Like they
Hmm.
really wanted the lid together with the container. They did not
Right.
want separate lids for many reasons, different reasons, space reasons, but also like losing them and management, those kinds of reasons. And so that was something that she learned was essential on the business owner side. And so what she kind of also tried to share with me through that process was just like having preferences, but also then making sure that it's something that will actually work and that businesses will also want to use it, not just consumers. And so I think there's a little bit of a balancing act of like, how do we get a program that has a container that works for all stakeholders that'll
Hmm.
be impacted by this or be using this, and try and balance those things as well. And so that's one of the things that we're really trying to kind of create a stakeholder advisory group together to make sure that we're hearing from all of those and kind of weighing all those different factors. So I think I would also say our preference would be to not use something non-plastic, especially for the container part.
Yeah.
And there are some options that are stainless steel or otherwise. Glass wouldn't make sense for breakage reasons,
Hmm.
but there are some other options available on the market now. And so I think we're going to go through a process in terms of selecting which one makes the most sense. There's also the price piece of it as well
Yeah.
from an equity standpoint. Is that was another reason that Risa shared is that the cost was just so high that it became almost like a financial inequity to have that be the standardized container for everybody.
Hmm.
One thing I'm curious about is if there's any potential we could have two tiers of containers for people who really don't want plastic, having a stainless steel option, but then still having maybe a plastic option as well.
Okay.
And there are, for the plastic side, there are companies that make really durable, good plastic options that are made from like 100% recycled plastic, BPA free. And then one of the cool things, there's a company called Aussie that makes this, which I've been kind of using on my own to kind of trial it. And one of the cool things is if that container at any point reaches end of life, they'll actually then recycle that plastic as well and turn it into a new product.
Okay. That's
Um,
nice.
so there are some things to still figure out on that. I, I think there are multiple options for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just talking about that made me think like, what do you get with to go? And usually there's like the ramekins, and then there's silverware, and
Yeah.
how do you tackle those little pieces? Is that going to be encompassed, or is that probably still going to be single use? You think?
That's something some other folks have asked me as well when I've been sharing this, and I think the way I would answer that is we're going to focus on the 80-20 rule and really focus on 80% of the waste first and like the biggest makers of the waste,
Yeah.
and then further down the line kind of hopefully keep expanding that to cover smaller use cases as well. So I think we don't want to take on too much
Yeah.
as we try and launch this. So I think if we're doing the reusable container program, we'll just focus on the big containers, the most standardized containers. And there's still going to be one-off, different size things.
Yeah.
So we don't want to have businesses have to have 7 different sizes of containers starting out,
Yeah.
or hopefully not even
They've
in
got enough
future.
dishes there.
Exactly. So I think it would be our goal would be to try and keep it something that's simple, where all the customers and businesses can say, okay, you're the 1 or 2 containers that this program is using
Yeah.
right now, and we would still encourage. If businesses, as part of this, when we're doing the outreach, let them know, hey, customers can bring their own containers as long as you follow these things. Are you aware of that? And if they're not, then help them kind of get to that point where they can start accepting reusables from folks as well. And so if we have people participating in our program who are interested in getting maybe their own for some specific use cases,
Yeah.
then maybe encourage that. And I think the one that comes to mind easily to me is just bring your own travel mug for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of coffee shops already accept that, but maybe there's still some that are not sure if they're allowed to or not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's been around for a while, but like I said, during
During
COVID,
COVID, you're right.
it was hard to get back to it. I remember just local shops,
Yeah.
even just last year, they were still like, no, I
Okay.
can't take that. But they still have rules where like they can't take the lid on
Yes.
their end. So what kind of issues would you see with a reusable container? I mean, you're saying it's going to be one piece.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, would you have those same kinds of issues? I don't know.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. We haven't decided if it's going to be one piece yet or what the container is. So I think
Gotcha.
we'll be weighing those. But I've heard, I want to share kind of what was suggested from other cities that have done this of like what was important for businesses. And we still want to do it for our region and customize it to the needs here.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that piece of it, I also want to clarify for the takeout container program. The way it works for Rogue to Go or Benton to Go or some of those programs, which we're mostly modeling off, but we might still make some changes and customizations,
Sure.
is every business that participates agrees to wash containers from folks in that program as well. So what that means is if I buy a container today and I buy it at a food cart in Potski, and then I use it, right? And I go home, I put it in my dishwasher if I want to. So they will likely be dishwasher safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time I go, let's say to the lot, then I can bring that container there. But what the lot will do is either if it's serving the meal, it could potentially serve it directly in a container if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But usually what would happen is that I would give it to them. They would still have that go through their washing process. And they'll just give me a new container at the same time. And that's why it really helps to have it be standardized. Is my understanding is a lot of times if people are getting a meal and takeout container, they might even be, let's say, calling it in.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're doing that, then the restaurant wants to have that container there already, or the food service business wants to have that container already there.
Yeah.
And that's what this makes possible is they don't have to wait for your container to get there. All the containers are the same. So they can just serve the meal or make the meal in that and then have it ready for you to pick up.
Yeah, because that's something so common these days too.
Yes.
Okay.
So it makes takeout possible where it's not like you have to be there with the container. And I think it just makes it much more scalable and feasible for all those use cases.
Yeah. So do you have a certain launch date for this, or is it just kind of rolling with the punches, seeing how it goes?
I think in my mind, I guess I'll share this. In my mind, our target launch date right now, which would be great, is at our Earth Day Fair.
Okay.
Which is April 25th, I believe, Saturday. So that would be
Troy
really
Field?
great. Actually, this year it's going to be at Alpenglow Park because we're
Oh.
having construction and renovations in our facility on that street.
Okay.
So it's going to be at Alpenglow Park, yeah.
Okay.
So
Looking
that's a
forward to
good
that.
good little notification for
Nice
folks
little
as well.
plug.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've been to one of your guys' events at Alpenglow, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. I think it should be really fun. I think we did one. Well, actually, I can't remember if we've done one before, but I think we might have done like a smaller event there before.
Yeah. We look forward to Earth Day every year. My daughter loves it.
It's a great event just to bring the community together. I feel like I'm always energized. I will also say we've been, knock on wood, we've also been lucky the last couple of years with some good weather. I feel like the last 3 years has been good. But,
Yes,
it can be kind of varied otherwise.
Yeah, I know a few years ago there was a wild windstorm. We had to like hold our tent down for it. It was so funny.
I was there trying to table, and it was, I was in the same situation trying to hold everything together.
We survived.
It's a great event, though. I love the energy. I love that it's so family friendly, and it really showcases how many different environmental focused groups, businesses, community organizations that we have, and just the amount of support it gets from the general. So I do feel like, in my mind, there's a lot of people here really care about the environment and sustainability, which makes sense if you live here. Yeah, you have an appreciation for it.
No, I agree. Are you guys gonna do the parade again? Just do it around the field?
That's a good question. I actually don't think we are, but I'm not sure. Don't hold me on that.
Talk them into it because it was very missed last year.
Okay. Well, I'll share this when it's live and let them know.
Okay, good. I guess speaking about scalability for this program, how far do you want that reach to go? Are you looking for just Central Oregon? Do you want to like reach out a little further? I mean,
Ooh.
what's your dream for the program?
I would say Central Oregon is a pretty decent sized region, especially because that's what our organization's focuses on as well as Central Oregon.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of scalability, I would say on the side of materials, there's a lot of opportunity. And so, like I mentioned, focusing on, let's just say, reusable serviceware right now at food cart lots and events and food service businesses is one segment or one sector.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think I've mentioned at times like coffee shops and like coffee cups, and we're not specifically focused on that right now as part of this. But especially if we can get a wash hub established here, I think it kind of unlocks all these other areas that also use single-use serviceware. So we can talk about coffee shops and creating like a network of coffee shops that have the same cup that you can also reuse and return any of them.
Yeah.
There's a company, a business called Okapi that does that, in I think Portland and a couple other cities. So that's one model, or we could have our own model or a different model. Then there's also breweries with single-use plastic cups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's so much opportunity in just terms of like shifting our region and our culture from
Yeah.
single-use serviceware to reusable serviceware. That I feel like that's what I'm really focused on is like starting with something that seems very concrete and defined, but then also I'm aware of all the possibilities that are like hopefully unlocked in the next couple of years as we get a wash up going too. And I'm definitely working with a lot of partners. You mentioned Justin. There's also we are funded by, and we really appreciate the support of the Shoes County Solid Waste. So they fund a lot of our work as well, and they're also very focused on how to reduce waste since
Yeah.
they manage the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're also partnering with them a lot of like how do we expand this in
Yeah.
the next couple of years. Another big one I haven't mentioned is schools. Our schools use a ton of single-use serviceware.
Yeah.
I think on the count of like millions, like 3 to 5 million
I could
single
believe
use.
it. There's a lot of little kiddos around.
Yeah, and I think I was actually surprised because I know in my mind when I was in high school we had like those reusable trays and like we had some reusable stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like there's not a lot of reusable stuff at all in schools right now. And so again,
Mm-hmm.
I think um, the barrier or the constraint from switching for schools as well has been washing capacity, and even if they have commercial dishwashers, they don't have the staff time to fund that and do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what is actually interesting, and I would love to see, I mentioned that we got a grant from Oregon DEQ. They're actually going to launch another grant this year called the Mirror Grants, and it's an acronym that stands. I'll try and Material Impact Reduction Recovery, something along those lines.
Okay.
But it's the acronym is Mirror, and they're launching their grants with a focus specifically on schools and campuses,
Okay.
so college campuses as well. I didn't even mention that as well, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, they have a cafeteria here. I mean, all the schools in town. Yeah, that's. I didn't even think about schools
yeah.
encompassing with all of that.
And if I can add, I think I was trying to make this point, but I got distracted.
Oh,
Is that with schools, especially, they've done studies. So Upstream Solutions is one of the organizations nationally leading a lot of this work and kind of like encouraging reuse across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a lot of really great studies and reports on this. And one of the ones that they've done is on schools specifically, is how much money they can actually save by
Yeah.
switching from single use to reusable. So I think that's another thing is because when the volume is that high, and they're going through that much single use every day, reusables can actually start saving money
Mm-hmm.
switching to that, because there's almost like there can be a one-time cost of buying the reusable serviceware, which would be more, but after this many uses, it pays for itself, and then everything after that is savings, which can then be used for more high priority areas for schools as well.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Opening our minds to a little bit of everything. um, did I also see that you had a hand in the Central Oregon Tool Library?
You did your research. I don't want to say claim any credit for having a hand or to that degree or extent, but that is something I was also interested in promoting, especially as part of the Rethink Waste program manager, because we were talking about reuse and serviceware a lot, but a sharing economy with tool libraries, or even the Shoes, public libraries, Library of Things.
Yeah.
Those are other ways that we really kind of rethink our relationship with materials and stuff, and kind of go from a very individualistic society to a little bit more of like, oh, does everyone need to own this, or can we share it? Especially if it's something we're using once a year or just once in a while,
Yeah.
or just for a one-time project that you might never need it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so tool libraries were something else that I'd heard were really emerging across the nation, and in some cases have been well established. And we didn't have one, and I thought there was an opportunity for that. And so I just posted on Reddit, and some other folks who were also interested in doing this also reached out.
Okay.
And so we basically had one meeting where we all connected, and then they were all really gung ho about it. They were there. Many of them had had the idea for a while. They were just waiting for a little bit of a spark.
Okay.
And then I think the combination of especially the three people I think who have led the project since then, they really had all the skills and things necessary to do it. And I basically took a step back because it was not something I had capacity to really be engaged to the same level of it.
Yeah.
But I was really glad. I also am not a very handy person, I'll admit. So when it comes to tools and things like that, it wasn't something where I like naturally knew exactly how it would work or it could help.
But now you
way.
can use it.
It's available now, and I love how they've done it too. I think one thing that I really love is how their equity model of how to be a member is based on like how much you're earning, and so like you make I think it's like if you're making 50,000 a year, you make like $50 per year to be a member. Versus if you're making more, you pay
So
that
a
much more.
sliding scale kind
It's
of
a sliding
situation.
scale,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And I think it's also I think they've mentioned something about they won't turn anyone away. So if that's still a barrier, they still want you to be able to participate. I believe is what if I remember correctly. So I love their model. I'm really encouraged to see that. And I think there's probably a lot more potential there too. I don't think everyone's aware of that yet.
Yeah.
So I think with some more awareness, I think as more and more people learn about it, I think there's an opportunity to scale that as well. And my understanding is it's all of them are just volunteering their time to do that right now. So it's not like it has a whole funded staff behind it or anything.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of exciting projects with like sharing things and reusables. I mean, the library's expanded their reach a lot.
Yes.
I mean, we can just get board games there if we want to now. It's
yeah,
really cool.
There's a lot of really cool things in the Library of Things. I'll make a quick plug if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we do offer, so the Rethink Waste project of the Environmental Center also offers reusable dishware kits. So for any folks if you're having an event for up to 100 folks, you can borrow our kits for free. It has everything you need, so plates, bowls, cups, utensils. And then you can just put it in the dishwasher and then return it. So it's very easy and convenient to get it. Mm-hmm. And then we also wanted to make sure it was available outside of just our service. So it's actually, we've provided a lot of kits to the Library of Things as well. Yeah. So they already have one kit, I believe, in the Redmond Library right now. And then I think they're going to be expanding it to all their locations as well once it's cataloged. Cool. And so if you're going to the library and you want to get something from there for your next party, you can just go grab it.
All right. Yeah. Definitely love the library. It's one of our favorite places. Yes. What brought you into this work? I know you came from Delaware.
I came from Delaware.
And so you found yourself with the Land Watch here first and then into the Environmental Center. So what kind of sparked your joy with all of this?
You've really done your research. Yeah. I did come from Delaware, and then before Delaware, I feel like I always mentioned is I was in India as well. What brought me to Central Oregon, or what brought me to this line of work?
I guess, yeah, what brought you to Central Oregon first?
I had a little bit of an unconventional journey to Central Oregon. I think a lot of people choose Bend or Central Oregon because they really love a lot of one of the activities here or multiple activities here. Mm-hmm. And I do enjoy them and I love them now. But when I moved here, I actually meant to move from Delaware to Portland. Okay. Because I'd been there for a week, had a great time, loved the Pacific Northwest. And it's kind of funny. I love sharing the story, but it's funny because people would ask me, I was working in Philadelphia at the time, and my coworkers were like, why are you moving all the way to Portland? And the three answers I always gave, it was like three reasons. It was one, is it's really green and lush. Mm-hmm. Two, it doesn't get very cold or snow there. And three, it has pretty good public transportation. I can exist without a car. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny that I ended up in Bend. For a temporary job. I never left because I loved it. Yeah. But it is kind of funny reflecting back because none of those three are really true here. Yeah. And it did take me some time to really like allow myself to fall in love with this place,
Mhm.
which I think I was already kind of like really drawn to it. But it took some time for me to like be like, this is not like the lush green tropical forest that I feel like I want to love.
Right.
And I do still love that, but I think I've also really grown to love this high desert environment as well.
We're not too far from the lush.
We're not. That's I think that's really helpful too. I
Yeah.
think if it was not as accessible,
Mhm.
then I would probably miss it more.
Yeah. And how do you find yourself at the Central Oregon Land Watch and then Environmental Center?
So my background is actually in marketing and entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So always, I think from a very young age, I always wanted to kind of like I was really inspired, and I love the idea of being able to find a problem and then solve it. And at that time, especially, like, and make money in the process of
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm solving this in an innovative way. I'm helping people with whatever that problem is, and in the process, I'm also selling something that people want and being able to make money from that business.
Yeah.
And then I've had a little bit of I'll keep it short by just saying a spiritual journey. I was very identified with the entrepreneur label, and kind of like letting go a little bit of that label, but I'm still very interested in like how can I use my skills to find a problem, and I'm very like problem solving oriented,
Mhm.
to see a problem and then be able to apply some kind of innovative problem solving to solve it. Um, and I think some friends saw that I was really struggling with like how do I start a business versus like this kind of like making the world a better place part of it,
Yeah.
and they actually recommended that, oh, I think you would really enjoy a nonprofit, like working for a nonprofit, like why don't you try that, which is something
Mhm.
I'd never done before. And so Landwash was my first nonprofit that I worked for, which is about 4 or 5 years ago now at this point. um, and I really enjoyed working for a nonprofit. And I think what I found, especially in that role at Landwash, I was the membership engagement manager. So it was much
Mhm.
more fundraising focused.
Yeah.
And I realized that I really would rather see the direct impact. Fundraising was a little too remote for me.
Mhm.
And so when I saw this opportunity to work for the Rethink Waste Project, and I think I would also admit that I like problems where it feels very aligned for me, and very clear. And
Yeah.
so I think I've always really cared about being more sustainable, especially on the materials side.
Mhm.
So when I saw this opportunity with the Rethink Waste Project, it felt like a really good aligned fit.
Mhm.
And then once I started doing the work, I only started as a part-time coordinator. But once I started doing the work, I realized, wow, I really love this. And at that time, I was also working on my chai business on the side. And so when I got the option to go full-time with the role, I put my chai business on hold and went full-time, and I've loved it since.
Good.
Yeah.
That's exciting. It
It,
sounds like quite a journey, but it sounds like you've made yourself pretty comfortable. And I mean, Central Oregon's really benefited from having you here. I think, I mean, I've seen you out and about at festivals and in the newsletters for sure. Um, but yeah, I've been so interested in seeing how the Rethink waste grows, and now you're going to do the reuse to shoots. I'm really interested to see how it grows and see, I guess, where else you can extend that reach. Because I mean, just schools and campuses, businesses. I mean, just thinking you could go to the mountain and get them convinced
yes,
too.
yes,
That's
I forgot to mention them. How could I? You're
I
right.
know, right? They're not getting a lot of love this year with the little bit of snow. um, I guess how you say people are already they have that foundation of sustainability and care.
Mhm.
How do we get more of that? How do we inspire more people to care and to make those transitions, do you think?
Ooh, that's a good question. And what I'll say is, I'm a very, I think, just naturally optimistic person to some degree. So I think what I see from my perspective is that I see a lot of people in Central Oregon care,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they want to try and be more sustainable. But I think with with many things, they also don't know maybe necessarily always what's the best way they can do that, or how
Mm-hmm.
can they get involved. And I think there's a little bit of maybe encouragement. I guess the reason I'm really excited with a lot of the work the Rethink Waste Project does, or that Reuse the Shoots is going to do, or even what the Environmental Center does. So the Environmental Center's mission is to embed sustainability in daily life in Central Oregon.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the work we do, not just the programs I've directly interacted or worked with, but all the programs. I feel like we really do work on that daily life in Central Oregon part, and I think those like very tangible, visible interactions that people have. So if they come to an event of ours, or they are directly impacting with a program of ours, or in a, even like something like a repair cafe, if they come to a repair cafe and they're able to get something fixed for free, but also see how the volunteer was able to fix it and maybe learn some skills in the process. I think all of those little things do add up, and I think that that is part of that culture shift.
Yeah.
And I want to be careful because sometimes what some people kind of like the response is, oh, it's going to need a lot more than just these small things. It's like, oh, the businesses and corporations are really responsible. We need to make them responsible. And I think there's a lot of truth to that too. So I do want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And we do have a policy and advocacy side as well, which we also do. But I think often it's like, oh, it's not this, it's this. I think it's a yes and thing, where I think we can kind of create change in multiple ways, and all of them can be helpful and important. And we can definitely prioritize the pieces that may have the most impact. But I feel like I would personally say don't underestimate the impact that we can have as consumers, as individuals, which includes how we buy things, or what we buy, or how we live. I think that can have a lot of influence. Is a lot of the ways corporations get power is through our buying decisions as well. So I just want to kind of stress that as well. So at least that's my perspective. Is I think all of those things are important. But what really I'm really excited about with Reuse the Shoe specifically, bringing it full circle back, is there is that systems change piece too. Is so the way I like putting it is, I as an individual might really care about not using single use, but I'm not always going to remember to bring something. Or if if it's not made convenient at all businesses, many businesses may not even be able to serve it in it. If I'm doing takeout, there's no way for me to get it in a reusable container if I'm ordering it in. So I think sometimes it can be really helpful for an organization or a government, if there's a city, there is city support for this as well. But it can be helpful for some entity to take the lead and saying, oh, how do we bring all these businesses together and pool that and create a systems change that then serves everyone and makes it better. But it still needs that initial initiative, and someone has to do that work. But once it's done, I think it can be kind of like self-sustaining to some degree too.
Yeah. I mean, I think the baby steps thing is important because it's just planting those seeds for sure. But you bring up a good point that it does take that leader of charge and change. I think the Environmental Center is a really great name to put on that. And with your guys' expansion of the building and your programs, do you guys see more growth, or I guess, I mean, obviously, but what do you guys see with the changes happening just within the program or the nonprofit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the buildings, there is some expansion there, but there's also some much needed renovations. And I think it's going to be really nice to have that open kind of flow from the inside to the outside, because I think it's felt very disconnected, right? We have the inside community room, but then there's the outside kind of garden area. And so it'd be really nice to have some of those upgrades and renovations that are much needed. But I feel like, to be transparent, I think the Environment Center is also in a period of transition, and I think we've kind of communicated a lot of that in our newsletters as well, with the longtime executive director having left in the last year, who was there for a very long time, and so I think there's also a lot of opportunity with some of the kind of looking forward now, of how can, in my vision and my perspective, the Environment Center is really well positioned and it kind of already, I mean, we are the hub for a lot of environmental nonprofits. In my opinion, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like we have some of the highest per capita environmental nonprofits in this region, and for good reason, because a lot of people here care about the environment, and they all have their focus and niche, and I think they're all important, right? Work, and they're different enough usually where it makes sense why there's so many.
Yeah.
But I think it's also really helpful to have some kind of connector hub organization that can serve as that community facing, help people connect them to the right information, or have a jobs board that all organizations can post to, or have an events calendar that all organizations' events are included on, so that folks who are looking for what's going on sustainability or environmentalism wise can go to one place versus 10 or 20 different organizations. So I think we already do a lot of that work, but I do think there's a lot more opportunity, in
Mm-hmm.
my view, in terms of both sustainability and climate action. And that's going back to your question of like, I think a lot of people are really interested in this. Um, but I still sometimes feel like, oh, like some events I go to, I'm like, oh, I'm surprised there aren't more people at that. And with my marketing background, I often am like, oh, I think there's more potential by marketing better and connecting better and bringing people together more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more opportunity to have even more impact through just the bringing together. I think we're as a community, I think we're already doing a lot, or there's a lot of resources or opportunities available. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're always getting connected to all the people who might be interested in it. And that's not to say like that's an easy thing, but I think
Right.
there's more opportunity
Yeah. I mean, events can only get so large.
there. That's fair. And it's not always about just like making them larger, but it is like how do we try and collaborate more, and how do we like create some more connections where maybe
Mm-hmm.
right now it's not as connected, or maybe it's a little bit more siloed.
Yeah. And then, kind of on the same topic, you are on the city's environmental climate committee.
Yes.
How does it feel to be kind of part of the bigger picture? Because essentially, what you guys talk about does affect us all as citizens. And I mean, being a part of so much already, but now, like, actually maybe getting a say in things. How's that feel?
So yes, the City of Bend's Environment and Climate Committee (ECC), but you were very close. It's I guess I've really enjoyed being on there. So I have two things I want to say on that.
Yeah.
So first is I really enjoyed being on there. Honored to be on there. It was the first time I've joined any kind of city committee, and I've been there since the start now, which has been 5 years maybe.
Yeah.
Time flies. Um, so I really enjoyed it. I love being able to see that some of that process for the city stuff, and I think especially the city has. I do want to give credit. Has done a lot in terms of, especially in the last. I would say, I think it's done a lot throughout the whole time I've been on it, but especially in I think the last 2 years from an education and outreach side, there's been a lot more activity. They launched the whole Climate Action Partner Grant Program, which has um, kind of allowed multiple organizations to do projects that are kind of pushing forward
Mm-hmm.
things that are already in the Community Climate Action Plan, which the city has had for many years now. Um, so I want to give credit for that, and that's been great to like see those like process, and also be part of some of that decision making, or at least deliberation.
Yeah.
At the end, we're still an advisory committee, and we make recommendations to council, so we
Mm-hmm.
don't have any power or authority
But
beyond
you
that.
have voice,
We have voice,
which is very
and I
important.
would say I have voice as a committee member, but I also want to encourage that everyone who cares about any of this, or if there's a specific issue that anyone watching this is concerned about, our meetings are all public. They are open to the public. There's public comment at the start. And I think one thing I've been a little surprised about, but it makes sense, people are busy, is we very rarely have public comment.
Yeah.
In the 5 years I've been there, we have meetings every month. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of meetings. And maybe a handful of times have we had public comment.
Okay.
So people care about something, or have ideas, or just want to share something, they can either email it to us, or they can come to a meeting and provide public comment, which I
Okay.
would definitely encourage. So I said there's two things I wanted to share. So one is it's been great, and I really enjoy it and love it and appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I take seriously, and I like being engaged on that side too. And then the second side I want to say is when we first joined the committee, I remember having this meeting. This was more than 5 years ago, where someone I think from the city kind of said, "Welcome to how committees work and how like city government works." And it's like, if you're used to working in the business sector or even nonprofit sector, you're used to like wanting to get something done, and you can just go out and do it.
Yeah.
And it's about the what, like what are we working on? And I think what they stressed was a lot of city government processes are focused on the how is equally important. And so like making sure the process is deliberative and open to public comment, and like it's done in a way that everyone feels like um, everyone's there is some process that's followed, so that it feels representative of the community,
Of
that the
everyone.
government.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that has been challenging for me personally. Is just that it, to some degree, it feels like things take a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love to see more, right?
Yeah.
Like more impact. And I think I have to. I'm, I totally understand why the process is the way it is and why things won't move as fast as the for-profit or even nonprofit sector in many cases. But that's still something that I feel like there's this impatience for, like, this is really serious, right? Like, we need to be reducing our carbon emissions really fast.
Yeah.
And it always feels like we're only able to do one or two things well at a time as a committee. And so my last thing on that would be, I think the City of Bend, the committee is doing some great work, and I think the folks at the city are doing some great work too. But I'm still curious if, compared to other cities of our size, especially mountain towns that are so directly impacted by climate change, if we need to kind of scale that even more. Like, do we need more staff? Do we need more attention, resources on this? And I know that's hard because city budget is being pulled in so many different directions, and there's a lot of immediate concerns that the city is also facing. Housing affordability being a key one.
Yes, definitely.
Transportation. I understand all of those, but I also feel like it's easy because it's like a slow moving ball. But if anything, I feel like this winter hopefully continues to be a wake up call for more and more people about the impacts of climate change for everybody, but especially for us here in Central Oregon with the higher risks of all kinds of extreme weather events.
Yeah, because low snowpack could mean crazy things for a wildfire season. And I think you're right. I think it has to take those wake up calls for people to kind of notice, which sucks, but people are noticing for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm always thinking the other side too, right? Of like, how do I, and I know sometimes I think I've read op-eds on this or just like people's comments on this or heard this from people, is that, oh, we're like a small city in the United States, and even if we do everything, it's not going to make an impact, right? And I think that's a little kind of defeatist or pessimistic. I think to flip that is like, if we can do our best and then also serve as a model and lead other cities and connect with other cities who are in similar places, then we can really, I think, be a leader in this. And I think that's where I see opportunity. I think it's something that I feel almost like we have this opportunity. It's a responsibility almost, right? But it's also an opportunity for us to be a leader in this space and show how we can really live in a more sustainable, climate-friendly way.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that. With that, you definitely need support from your community. Where do you find that support? Who do you find that support in to keep you going?
Just personally?
Yeah, just personally.
That's something I haven't thought about in those ways. Well, I have some really, I think I'm very fortunate in many ways. So I have a really good community, I would say, of support. Even though I'm very close with my family, so even though they're on the East Coast, I'm still like my immediate family and extended family. They're all on the East Coast, so they're really far. But I still really appreciate just having them, like having that emotional closeness with them and having a family that I can count on, which I know is not the case for everybody. And then I shared this with you earlier, but my parents are now both retired. So my hope is that they can also split their time and live with me half the year and then half of the year on the East Coast. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And then I just want to give a shout out. I have some really, I have a best friend who I just love. And so that's something that I really appreciate, having some really good, close friends that I can lean on and who can provide some support during hard times, especially I would say right now. We're living through some really hard times, I think all of us. And so I think I really appreciate that too. And then I think in terms of the larger community, I'm part of the ecstatic dance community here. I'm part of like a lot of different, I feel like I have a lot of different interests. So I feel like I am in a lot of different circles. And I do appreciate there's so many, from my view, there's so many amazing people here, so many open-hearted, supporting, loving, kind, caring people. And I feel blessed to feel like in circles with them, in community with them.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's important to have that because, like you said, especially in hard times or dealing with tough information or, waste it can be a lot looking into waste. And that's not always a fun project. So even finding common ground or support in your friends or community, I think is extremely helpful. But it sounds like you have got that on lock. So
and I guess I forgot a big one, and especially living here in Bend, I don't want to forget that, is access to the outdoors, nature. I'm able to take a hike every morning and spend time looking at the mountains, looking at Pilot Butte, surrounded by trees.
Yeah.
I visited the East Coast recently for a month, and that was something I really missed while I was staying with family and friends. Um, is just like how I feel like I'm continually reminded not to take that for granted, that we have that
Yeah.
so widely, easily, beautifully available here.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's hard to leave town because it's so beautiful.
Agreed.
Those are all of my questions I have for you today. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to the conversation?
No, I just want to add that this is my first time doing an interview. This was a podcast interview, especially. I've done some short interviews on the KPOE, but that was my first podcast conversation of any kind, and this was really cool.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing your insight.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.